But yeah, I didn't get them at first because I almost thought they were too simplistic. But you have to put that in the context, and then when you start to get into their larger catalog, you start to hear, being a non-musician, I can only speak to it sort of like anecdotally, but then you start to hear their influence on pretty much everybody that came after. And then if you go back and you go and you look what was going on in the New York scene when they came about, who they influenced, who their contemporaries were, like their peers, you see like the back and forth, the give and take from each band and how they all work together to create something that was completely not a thing. So they go back and they pull from like early rock influences, but they speed it up and they produce something that was totally unlike anything that was being on the mainstream.
So when you say overly simplistic, would you say that it, without being too, obviously we're not going to get like confrontational, but it sounds kind of snobby.
No, it does. No, it totally does.
But here's the thing, though, is since you had that 70s rock background,
you're looking...
That's what the Ramones actually dealt with in the 70s.
That they were a response to that. What I had come to expect was multi-layered, like 6 instruments in a song that was 7 minutes long.
When you say overly simplistic, in your like egocentrical, like emotional judgment of the band, did that make you think that, and obviously this is kind of a, I gotta qualify this, but did you think you were a little bit too good for it? It's like, that stuff is so simple, I wouldn't enjoy it because I've listened to all of this stuff that has this lush orchestration and all this stuff,
perms and shag carpet.
Yeah. So would you say that you had a little bit of a kind of a bias because you thought it was, on the surface, you thought it was anti-intellectualism?
No.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is like a lot of
people... I
like
intellectualism and I like anti-intellectualism.
But did you like anti-intellectualism when you were a kid? You do now, obviously, because you understand.
No. When I was a kid, I was very intellectual, and now I've gotten dumb as I've gotten older, and I like both.
So that's my point, is that a lot of people who had biases against the Ramones before they got into it were because they just thought it was anti-intellectual.
That's so wild to me, because, like, when you look at their lyrics, they're very poignant. They're very intelligent. They're very well thought out.
Who knows the lyrics to most songs other than the fact that those lyrics are syllables?
Yeah.
To this day, I don't know half the lyrics to fucking Stairway to Heaven. I just know that is, and as we wind on down the road, I managed to sing a song. That's all. There walks a lady we all know who shines wide light on ones that show or something.
I listen to the lyrics. I listen to the bass and I listen to the lyrics.
But the point being is that you see these retards with fucking bowl cuts and jackets and dirty ripped up jeans, and you're like,
which nobody was dressing that way at the time.
Dumb. So not only does that's the thing, is
that was so needed then.
They dealt with that in the 70s just like they dealt with it individually afterwards.
Yeah.
But that's the whole point, is that it's like once you start to realize it, like, for instance, the very first time I saw Beavis and Butthead, I thought to myself, whoever's doing this is a smart motherfucker.
Oh, yeah.
This is one of the smartest things I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. Because you have to be really smart to be that fucking stupid.
Yeah.
Right?
No, they're brilliant.
And because of the Ramones, I understood it was like ironically stupid. Like... During Rock and Roll High School, during the Pinhead song, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how many people really noticed this, but during the DUMB part, they flashed, once again, impact block letters, DUMB, everyone's accusing me. The first time. But the second time, do you know what they flash on the screen?
I don't remember.
DMUB. Right. Right? Because
they're playing into the expectation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like,
oh, if this is how you're gonna think of us, then this is what we're gonna be in a way that's basically like.
It's kind of like when rappers turn the N-word into a shield.
Yeah.
It's like, you think we're stupid, we're gonna show you how smart we are by being completely stupid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can see
so,
that.
A lot of kids, I think, identified with a lot of intellectual kids who weren't allowed a lot of intellectual input.
Yeah.
You know? Just because their parents were normal, average people, and they, it's not like you just got, everybody assumes, everybody that's deprived of the good things in life were deprived because of evil people. But sometimes you just live in fucking Billings, Montana or something, and you don't have the cool guy behind the gym smoking pot turning you on to the Ramones.
Access to stuff.
So, I know we're going back in circles again on that, but it just all comes down to me, I think, the thing that sets the Ramones apart from even the Sex Pistols. Any other band that's considered their genre is the fact that they have so much more depth to them that you have to work at.
That's exactly what I kind of felt, because at first, like, my initial reaction, I was like, I didn't get it. It was like, I didn't get it. And then I had to put it in context. Once I put it into context, I kind of started to get it. And then when you start getting into it, you see that on the surface, while it may appear to be simplistic, it is not in any way, shape, or form simplistic. It set the tone for so many things to come, like in terms of fashion and in terms of musical style. And it's fun now to me, like as a non-musician, to listen to other groups and to hear that influence in there, or to hear like who they borrowed from, back in early rock, because
there's sometimes where you hear like little snippets of other pop songs where you're like, well, that's basically the 3-chord version of whatever song they heard before.
I don't know how to like articulate it because I don't really play anything, but I'm like, hey, I hear them, they're in there. Yeah, but it's the same styling or melody. But it was kind of lost on me at first.
Shit, now I remember what we were going to talk about, because we had a little pre-interview discussion here. The thing about racing thoughts and those kinds of things that are considered to be mental health issues, but are really more ways that your brain works in a different way. And we were talking about the repetitive nature of the Ramones and how that appeals to people who have OCD and situations where they focus in on one thing. Talk about how your hyper-focus
so that was at first. At first, I didn't get it because I thought it was repetitive. But then when you start to get into it, you realize that the repetition is actually very therapeutic in a way. And I guess, like, if you feel, if you're somebody, like, that is a little hyperactive, that, like, I like to put it on, and I can work that way really, really well. Because, like, I have ADHD, so I have focus issues. So I like the repetition. I like the speed. I like the pace. I like the rhythmic quality, because I can put the Ramones on and I can just get a ton of work done. So it's like, that's part of, to me, that's part of what they represent, is like not viewing whatever you have going on as like a disability, but using that as a strength to do the work that you need to do. So
okay, as a side note to that, do you think that the duality of the Ramones, that they've got stuff that you can pay attention to, like the ironic lyrics and stuff like that, but do you think also one of the things is that you can, if you can, turn off your intellectual side and use the Ramones as background music?
You can, yeah. I mean,
because it is pop music.
Yeah.
Stripped down, but
that can also
the
be
repetition of the
another thing that can. I'm assuming, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm assuming it's true for others, is sometimes when you are a very intellectual person, or you're somebody that, thinks really fast, like has hyperactivity, has anxiety, it's really nice sometimes to be able to turn that off and to like escape into something that is not like forcing you to be intellectual, not as forcing you to think hard, but it's like, it's rhythmic, it's fast-paced, it's, repetitive, that repetition, and being able to escape into, like, what you were saying, like, the anti-intellectualism.
Well,
that's helpful for somebody who has to exist in a space of being, like, all gathered and put together all the time to be able to go there.
I'd like to bring attention to that point, because that's something that a lot of people don't address when they talk about the Ramones.
Mm-hmm.
And that is... A lot of people talk about the intellectual side of the Ramones,
mm-hmm.
but what a lot of people don't talk about is what you just talked about, and that's something that I've had a hard time articulating to other people,
mm-hmm.
because I don't know about you, but to me, I almost don't want to talk about it because it makes me feel like a snob.
Yeah.
But I'm basically, when you boil it down, it's that you don't know what it's like to never be able to stop thinking.
Yeah, it's hard to turn your brain off.
And the way that I can compare it
mm-hmm.
to someone is like, have you ever either been married to or had a coworker or something that just will not shut the fuck up? Shut up! Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear the same fucking story you told me 3 weeks ago.
Oh my god.
I know that you're over there right now thinking about something to talk about.
And you're like, that's my brain. That's the
my
inside
brain.
of my
It's
head.
like, shut the fuck
that's
up
the
and give me some emotional rest.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that minimalist music like that
is respite for people who think a lot.
It is. And the Ramones sometimes if you can get into the right intellectual space, the Ramones can tell your brain to shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. That's what I came to realize is what I loved about them. Like, it's okay. So that's the other thing is their music is like really heavy and it's really fast paced, but it's also incredibly positive. Like, you can't listen to their stuff and have a bad time. You really can't. I mean, if you do, I don't know how.
You don't like them.
I don't know how. But at first, I didn't get it. But then over
that's
time,
what I mean is if you can't enjoy them, then you just don't like them.
Yeah.
And that's, everybody has to admit that not everybody can like everything.
Yeah.
Kind of like, this is a little peek back into the old days for kids. When I was, older teenager, we had one good stereo, and it was in the middle of the house. It wasn't the old console one. Mm-hmm. It was that meme that says, this is the stereo everybody wanted in the 80s?
Yeah.
It's that stereo. My dad bought that stereo.
The glass cabinet.
Yeah, glass cabinet and everything.
Yeah.
Turntable on top.
Yeah.
And so I immediately, because my old setup was a shitty turntable through a tape deck that hummed. Right? So all my tapes hummed. So as soon as my dad bought this expensive stereo system, I went and took all my Ramones albums, bought those fucking Maxell tapes,
yeah, you made
the pack
tapes.
of the Maxells,
right?
And I went and recorded all of my Ramones albums onto cassette.
Tapes are back.
And
and they're expensive.
Tapes. Fuck that shit. We'll get into that in a second. But my 53rd and 3rd was on. And my dad walks in right as Dee Dee is singing about the razor blade. And he stops, he goes, that is some of the worst shit that I've ever heard. What the fuck are you listening to? Because my dad wasn't like Archie Bunker or anything.
No.
But basically my outgoing personality where I'm comfortable saying stuff, that's my dad. And he's like, what the fuck are you listening to? This is terrible. Like, for instance, that Erga Music War concert, I don't know if you ever seen that, but Lux Interior of the Cramps.
Yeah.
That song,
Lux.
that video of him breathing in the microphone, it's like putting the microphone in his mouth and stuff. I'm watching this, and my dad's like, who the fuck is that fucking
the
Neanderthal? Yeah, he's like, what the fuck are you watching? He wasn't offended or anything.
Like, it's a response to everything that came before this.
Exactly.
This is a social response to everything that preceded it. That's what I'm watching.
But that's the whole thing, is
Work
that
is done here.
I feel thankful that when my dad challenged me, it was intellectually. Mm-hmm. It's like, what the fuck do you see in this? He didn't necessarily like it, but he wanted to know. It wasn't like, you're stupid, or any of that stuff. This is garbage. He's like, what the hell do you see in this? I don't understand this. This guy looks dumb. That guy can't sing. He's singing about not being a sissy. What the hell?
What's going on here?
Yeah, what's going on? And that was a priceless moment for me.
That's awesome.
Because it wasn't like my dad beat my ass for listening to the Ramones. He challenged me intellectually for listening to the Ramones, and I thank him every day for doing shit like that.
To look into what is it about it that resonates with you. Mm-hmm.
But
yeah,
it's
pretty cool.
So because once again, I was a kid that had pretty much everything. Mm-hmm. My jeans weren't ripped up because I didn't have jeans. That's my phone.
Cell phone jamboree.
By the way, speaking of that, that's my ringtone is Uncle Meat by Frank Zappa.
Wow.
And if you wanted to know what my head sounds like, listen to the opening title of Frank Zappa's Uncle Meat and all of them racing thoughts and all that stuff. That's what my brain sounds like on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you ever listened to Captain Beefheart?
Yes, and I don't like it.
That's kind of what my brain sounds like. It's just a lot going on.
I appreciate
There's
it.
a lot going on.
I own Trout Mask Replica on CD.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Trout Mask Replica. That's
I like when Big Jones sets up. I like that stuff, but to me, it's just like it's like the early Boredoms. You ever heard of that band?
No.
Japanese noise band.
That's my brain.
Yeah.
A lot of dissonant stuff.
The later
around.
The Boredoms and Melt Banana. Like the early stuff is just like over and over and over in different increments of notes.
I'm gonna check that out.
Yeah. But for me, Beefheart was just a little too chaotic.
Yeah.
But
so if your brain sounds like that, then the antidote to that could be somebody like the Ramones.
Yeah, exactly.
The Ramones are the antidote to Captain Beefheart.
But what kept me is the intellectual mindset of the lyrics.
Yeah.
And the presentation.
The honesty, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place for us to wrap it up.
Yeah.
Because I think we've covered pretty much everything I wanted to cover.
Cool. And
I appreciate, once again, Bren is a supporter of me on Patreon.
Yes.
And she's been she helps me out with my kind of questions about whether I should do something in a certain design way. So let's all give a pat on the back to Bren. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I'll talk to you guys soon.
Catch you later.
This is Bren, and I'm Rocky the Ramone.